I think we're live. All right, got it working. Hey, how is it going? It is your muscle building and fat loss coach, Lee Hayward, with another live video Q&A for October 1st, right? Another month. Here we are. So the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next 60 minutes and answering any questions and topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition that you would like to ask. So if you have any questions about your workouts, about your nutrition program, or if you have any challenges when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, or anything like that, feel free to post those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window there, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out during our chat today. And I have a few topics that actually came through from some of my coaching students and some comments that were coming through to my recent videos that I posted. So I'm going to start with addressing those because it's certainly something that will help people in all areas, right? Especially when I get into them, you'll be able to relate to these because these are kind of universal topics, and that's why I want to address them here. But before I get into that, just let me know who's actually tuning in now for the live video chat. So if you are tuning in live, let me know. Type, the live if you're watching this live right now. And also let me know if you're a regular to the chat. If you are a regular, type the letter R, right? So live, you're watching it live, and R, you're regular. And if you're brand new, type the letter N. Type the letter N to let me know that you're new. And I know some people are probably not comfortable doing that. Like, hey, I'm new to the chat. I don't want to type, say that I'm new here. But hey, everyone's welcome. And it's nice to have new people joining in. And if you are new, then I'll give extra priority to your questions if you do have any questions that you would like to discuss during the chat today. All right, so got myself a piping hot cup of tea. So this is officially a tea with Lee. All right. I sometimes actually name the title of my video chats "Tea with Lee," but today I do have a tea with me, so it is officially a tea with Lee. Tea with Lee video chat. All right. First thing that I want to address now, before we get into answering your questions, is one that it's a common issue that I've had to deal with some of my coaching students who are going through the Muscle After 40 Blueprint coaching program, and obviously, the name of that program, Muscle After 40, it's guys who are over 40, working professionals, family men, guys with busy careers, busy lives, and they don't have endless hours to just dedicate to the gym. And one of the problems that comes about when you are a busy person, busy parent, busy, professional, whatever you have on the go, is sometimes the workouts get pushed to the side. And then even though you know better, you kind of know what you should be doing, you're not doing it. And then you fall off track. And what often happens when people fall off track is instead of doing a little bit, they do nothing, right? It's all or nothing. And this is one of the biggest traps that you have to let go of. And this is a mind issue. It's a mindset trap that a lot of people find themselves falling into. And I'm guilty of this as anybody. I've been very guilty of this in the past because as a former competitive bodybuilder, I would go through this. I would go through the all or nothing, meaning that if I was all in, then it was like I put the blinders on and it was just, the whole eat, sleep, train, repeat mantra. I mean, like my whole life was just dedicated to the goal of like getting ready for a bodybuilding show. So workouts, nutrition, meal prep, that came above and beyond everything else. And other stuff would get pushed to the side as I prioritized that. And I had this perfection mindset where it had to be perfect. Like the meal prep had to be perfect. The workouts had to be perfect. The cardio, everything had to be structured and planned and organized. And if I got off track, I felt like a failure. I was like, oh shit, I screwed up again, right? And I just blew the diet, or I missed a workout or something like that. And it would really mess with my head. And sometimes it would get to the point where, like, if I missed, like, had a couple bad days in a row, I was like ready to throw in the towel and quit. And like, what's the point of even doing this anymore? Oh, it's not perfect. And a lot of people have that all or nothing perfection mindset. And you may think that that's actually helping you, but it's the biggest hindrance, because having those high standards where everything has to be perfect is actually preventing you from taking action. Because what happens when it's not perfect? Then you end up saying, well, what's the point of doing anything at all? And you end up doing nothing. So it's either pedal to the metal or it's nothing at all. It's like driving your car with two speeds, right? It's dead stop or foot to the floor. Like, you cannot operate a vehicle in those two ranges, right? Well, you can operate it at dead stop, of course. I mean, but that gets you nowhere. But you can't drive pedal to the floor, right? I mean, yeah, you can do it in certain situations, like if you're on a straightaway or something like that, but you're going to crash and burn if you try to hold pedal to the metal all the time. You just physically cannot do it. But what if you scale it back? What if you just drive around at the speed limit? Like, there's a reason we have speed limits out there. If you drive around at the speed limit, I mean, you could drive around all day and relatively stress-free. I mean, it's not that challenging. You know, the average driver can drive around at the speed limit all day long without a hitch. But if you try to go too fast and pedal to the metal, you're going to crash and burn. And that's the same principle when it comes to following a fitness and nutrition program. If you're always trying to be perfect and always trying to push the extremes, you're going to crash and burn. It's not sustainable. And I see it all the time. Like, guys saying, well, I'm on some intermittent fasting, ketogenic, starvation, 1,000 calorie a day, 1 meal a day diet. And I'm like, wow, wonderful. Good for you. How long is that going to last? A week? 2 weeks? You know, how long is it really going to last before you say, screw this, I can't do it, and you quit? Like, not very long. Right? I mean, nobody can sustain themselves on a starvation diet. I mean, yeah, it works if your goal is fat loss and you just want to drop weight. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. You stop eating, you're going to lose weight. Duh. Right? It's the easiest way to create a calorie deficit. I'm on this great diet. I just don't eat anything. Right? I mean, obviously it works. But how long can you sustain that? Is that something you can do day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out for the rest of your life? If it's not, and it's only this short-term quick fix diet, like you say, I'm going on keto for the next 30 days because I want to get ready for a beach vacation, or I'm going intermittent fasting because I want to, I'm going to do it for 6 weeks or 90 days or whatever, this little deadline you have for yourself. Once that deadline's over, then what? Right? Like, if it's not sustainable, the diet, the results are not sustainable. You have to change the underlying habits first. That's what needs to change. You need to change the foundational underlying habits. The habits that are getting you fat to begin with, those are the ones that need to change. It's not how fast can you lose the fat. It's how can you prevent getting fat in the first place. And I always like to use the analogy, like, imagine we're out at sea, we're in a boat, and the boat is leaking. There's a hole in the boat and it's taking on water. Right? So, I mean, you can say, well, what's the fastest way to get the water out of this boat? And someone might say, well, I'm going to get a bucket. I'm going to get a bucket and start dumping water out of the boat. Someone else says, well, I'm going to get a pump and I'm going to start pumping water out of the boat. And someone else says, I'm going to get some sort of siphon and siphon the water out, and all the different strategies to get the water out of the boat. But if you don't fix the underlying problem, i.e. patch the hole, then all the solutions to get the water out of the boat are all for naught if you don't fix the underlying problem. Because as soon as you stop that nose to the grindstone where the boat's taking on water, like, as soon as you stop that, it's just going to fill back up again. So what do you need to do first? Fix the problem. Let's patch the hole, and then we can worry about getting the water out of the boat. Right? Like, that's the analogy that I want you to take when it comes to your fitness and fat loss. Like, instead of thinking, well, what's the fastest way for me to lose the fat? Think of what's caused me to get fat in the first place? Like, what are the unhealthy habits that I have adopted over the years? And these are not something that you just picked up like overnight. These are things that have been ingrained very often since childhood. Poor eating habits, poor exercise habits, poor lifestyle habits. Because, I mean, you very often see it. I mean, my son's in kindergarten now, and I know, like when we have parent-teacher days at school or something, and, when we're taking them in, like, I'm seeing, like, hey, there's the chubby kids and there's the chubby parents to those chubby kids, right? I'm not naming names or nothing, but I'm just stating the obvious here, right? Like, when people say, it's hereditary, it's genetic, very often it's not necessarily the fat that's genetic. It's the habits that cause you to get fat is genetic. That's what's passed on down. So this stuff is ingrained from childhood. Poor eating habits, poor exercise. Right? If the kid sees dad, after a long day at work, sit on the sofa, watch TV, eat potato chips, and drink beer, well, hey, that's what you do after work, right? That's what he's learning. He's learning by seeing. Whereas if he sees dad, put on his running shoes and go out for a run, he sees dad sit down to a healthy meal, he sees dad going to the gym and working out or doing body weight exercises at home or whatever, like, that's what becomes the new normal. Right? Like, it's all these little habits and subconscious decisions. And this is stuff that's ingrained from childhood. So you need to change the habits that have been causing you to get fat in the first place Once you have that done, then we can tackle the fat that's on your body. And very often, just by stopping getting fat, you will actually start to burn fat. And then we can manipulate the variables of calorie intake and exercise expenditure and all that kind of stuff to burn the body fat off. But we need to change the fundamental habits underneath. It's not just what's the best diet plan. Like, how can I quickly lose the weight? That's like saying, well, what's the fastest way to dump water out of a boat while it's still leaking? Right? It's just going to fill back up as soon as you stop the nose to the grindstone effort. So it's a different approach, a different philosophy that you need to take to this in order to have sustainable long-term results. And this is something that I've adopted myself once I've got past the whole bodybuilding mantra, because the way it was for me, like, I diet down for a bodybuilding show. Yeah, I get lean and ripped and suffer it out for the short term, compete on stage, look good for the pictures and the placings and all that and the videos. And once the contest was done and everything was, the photos were taken, and it was all said and done, then it's like I went back to the old habits, right? Like, where's the bakery? Where's the pizza place? Where's the ice cream shop? And I just go back to all my old habits, start binge eating on junk food, pile the fat back on again. Like, it took months to lose it, only a few weeks to put it all back. And then I try and justify it by telling everybody that I'm bulking up because it's the off season, right? I mean, it's the biggest crock of shit that it ever was, because bulking up is just an excuse to get fat. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody. So, and I changed that whole mindset, right? And my philosophy now is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the extreme perfection approach. It just has to be good enough, but good enough consistently. And if you can not just understand that meaning, like, intellectually, but like live it internally, where every single day it's good enough, but good enough consistently. Okay, like, maybe I can't do a perfect workout. I don't have time to go to the gym and do 2 hours of training and cardio and blah, 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 and this perfect, bodybuilding split routine that I got planned out. But you know what? I can do a little body weight circuit at home, right? Even if I only got 20 minutes, then hey, I'm going to do 20 minutes of exercise. Right? I don't have time to do a full-on cardio workout, but you know what? I can put on my sneakers and go for a walk around the block. Something is better than nothing. And once you start taking that attitude, and even the same with your meals, like, even if the nutrition is not some perfectly planned out meal prep with all the macros and calories calculated out, like, you can still make better food choices. Like, you could be at a restaurant, like, just look at the menu. Hey, I'm going to order the grilled chicken instead of the deep fried chicken, right? I'm going to order a baked potato instead of French fries. Right? I'm going to have a side of vegetables instead of a side of onion rings. Like, all these little decisions that you can make in the moment, that's what's going to determine whether you succeed or not. It's not, oh, what's the calories? What's the macros? What's the split? None of that shit matters in the real world. It really doesn't. It's about being good enough, but good enough consistently over the long term. That's what makes the biggest difference. And if you're really struggling with this, right? Like, a lot of people are struggling. Like, they have a program in place and they're like getting off track and they can't follow it, then break it down to the most basic, bare bones, simple elements, the most basic thing. And like, for those of you who are really, really struggling, like, you know what to do, but you just can't do it, then just focus on one thing. And maybe that one thing is, you know what, every single day I'm going to do some form of exercise, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's doing a little, push-ups and body weight squats at home. I'm going to do something. Like, for at least 10 minutes a day, I'm going to do some form of exercise. Like, make it ridiculously small that you can't say no. And if it's that small, the likelihood of it actually getting done is much higher. Whereas if you try and say, well, every day I'm going to go to the gym and work out for 2 hours, the likelihood of that actually happening, unless you're very committed, is slim to none. Like, the average person who's on and off again with the gym is not going to be in the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be consistent. But what if we said 10 minutes a day? Like, 10 minutes a day, you have to do something. And it doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, it could be 10 minutes of push-ups and squats. It could be 10 minutes of walking around the block. It could be following some home workout video, like doing a home a yoga, follow along yoga video. Like, that's something that I do. Like, if what I'll do sometimes, if I'm pressed for time, but I still want to get some exercise, I'll go on YouTube and I'll type in, like, follow along yoga workout, and I'll do that. And I'm telling you, yoga is a very underrated form of exercise. If you've never done it before, you don't appreciate it. But I mean, I've seen big burly guys who are strong, like guys who can squat 500 pounds in the gym, and then can't hold a simple yoga pose without toppling over, right? Like it works muscles in ways that your body's not accustomed to, and the balance and stabilizer muscles. I mean, if you're looking for functional strength, then yoga will definitely help you to develop that. Like functional strength, balance, core, support, stability, flexibility, all that. So I try to do at least one yoga workout a week just to kind of supplement everything else and keep the body loose and limber and mobile, along with weight training and cardio. So again, getting back to my little topic here of every single day, you got to do something, even if it's just 10 minutes, and have the bar set so low that it's easy to jump over it. Like if the bar is set up here and you got to like do leaps and bounds to get over it, you're not going to be consistent. But if the bar is set so low that like anybody who puts a half-assed effort is going to get over it, that's what you want. And just build a habit. Like every day, I'm crossing that off my list. Every day I'm doing 10 minutes of exercise, no matter what. Check, check, check. And you build that momentum, you build that habit. Then it's easy to expand on that habit, because the hardest part is getting started. The hardest exercise you will do at the gym is walking through the gym door. That is open up the gym door and walk in. That's the hardest exercise there. That's harder than squats. That's harder than deadlifts. That's harder than anything. The hardest exercise is to get your ass off the sofa and into the gym. Once you accomplish that, it's like coasting downhill. That it's easy because you're there, you're committed, right? So you have to make a habit of starting, make a habit of committing to the process of starting. And the easier and the faster you can do that, the better it's going to be. So start small. Instead of worrying about, oh, well, I got to get my macros right, and I got to get my calories right, and my meal prep, and I got to have my weight training, and I got to have this cardio split, and I got to have my supplements, and blah, 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 all this stuff. Just say, you know what? I just have to do 10 minutes of exercise each day. That's it. Like for the first month even, just say, you know what? I'm just going to focus on every day this month, 10 minutes of exercise. And then next month, you probably add to it. You know, I'm going to focus on different nutritional habits. And I'm actually making a video series on YouTube called The First Step to Fat Loss, and the whole purpose of this is each video, I give you one step, one action tip, just one thing to start moving you in the right direction towards fat loss. And actually the first step, the first video in that series is to walk every day, right? Just that's the first step to fat loss. Just commit to every day I'm going to go for a walk, right? Now, I mean, you can elaborate on that if it's walking, if it's going to the gym and doing cardio there, if you have some sort of cardio machine at home, you can do that. But it's basically move your body for a minimum of 10 minutes a day. Like set the bar so low so that you can get over it. And if you do that, then you will start to build that habit, that positive momentum, and it will carry over and it will snowball. But you got to build that momentum in the process. And sometimes trying to do too much too soon is the biggest mistake. Whereas if you make it ridiculously small, ridiculously simple, the odds of actually doing it are much higher and you'll follow through. So that's what I recommend for people who are struggling with starting and struggling with this. Like you've been on and off again. And like, yes, you know what to do. And you're always watching videos and like you got more knowledge in your head than most certified personal trainers. But yet you look at yourself from the body down and you never look like you worked out a day in your life. Like I know a lot of people like that personally. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people who are watching my videos, and maybe some of you who are watching this video right now can relate to this. Like, you know it all. Like, you know all the exercises, you know all the workout splits, you know all the popular diet plans, and you know about supplements and training routines and everything else. Like, you know more than 90% of the people out there. Yet, if you look at you from the neck down, you're like, did you even exercise a day in your life? Like, you're probably still 50 pounds overweight and like, what's up, dude? Right? You know it, but you ain't living it, right? So like knowing it up here isn't the same as knowing it internally, where you live it, breathe it, and do it every day, and it's just part of your identity and who you are. So I'm pulling back the curtain, I'm pulling back the BS, and I'm not pulling any punches here, right? I'm just telling it like it is, because a lot of people need to hear it like it is, right? Like knowing it up here doesn't equal having the physique, right? And that's one of the biggest problems. Like I was having a chat the other day with somebody. I mean, he's a certified personal trainer. He's got nutrition certifications. He's like knows all this shit, like knows it all, but he's still overweight, out of shape, and a diabetic, and he's suffering with all kinds of health trouble. And he came to me looking for some help because like knowing it up here doesn't mean jack shit. You need to actually take that knowledge and have a sustainable system where you can implement it and make it part of your lifestyle and your routine. And that's what I focus on helping people with. Like, I'm not just going to give you another diet plan and another macro split and all. Like, you can go on Google and get that. There's a million of them out there, right? You need someone to give you a kick in the arse and have a system in place to help hold you accountable so that you do what you know you need to do. And that's what we have in place now with the whole Muscle After 40 blueprint. So hopefully some of the guys are taking this in, right? Because I know a lot of my students watch these videos, and I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to the members of the Muscle After 40 program. All right, so I'm all reared up here now. Let's see, what's the other topic I have here? Training to failure. This one was sent in by Jeff, who's one of my top coaching students, and myself and Jeff, we've actually did a video interview where we shared his story. Like, he went from just overweight, borderline obese, to now like he's sporting six-pack abs year round. And I mean, it's just amazing transformation. And he's in the situation now where he has the consistency. He's like, fitness and nutrition is his lifestyle. Like, he's a changed man. Like, over the past couple of years, he's went from like overweight, out of shape, eating junk food, drinking booze, to like living a lean, healthy lifestyle and enjoying it. Like, enjoying it to the point where he doesn't want to go back to the old habits anymore. Like, food does not taste as good as feeling fit, as being fit feels, if that makes sense, right? The health, fitness, and vitality that he has by going through this whole transformation is way better than just being able to sit on the sofa and binge eat and get drunk. Like, that doesn't even compare in feeling of satisfaction and that you feel when you're healthy. So anyway, in Jeff's case, he's pushing himself. He's consistent. So I mean, like, he's got that mastered. But now I'm holding back the reins for Jeff, because he wants to push himself more and more all the time. And he feels like he could always be doing more and pushing harder and everything else. And one of the issues that he's having is training to failure and beyond, and really pushing himself with super high intensity. And I respect the drive. I really do. But I'm here to caution you, especially for older guys. Now, this applies to anybody of any age, because injuries can happen regardless of your age. But the older you get, the more likely it is that you're going to suffer some injuries if you abuse your body, because your joints, tendons, and ligaments, they got more wear and tear on them, right? It's just like, driving a brand new car at the limit versus driving an old clunker at the limit, right? There's more things going to pop and crack and go in an old clunker. And I'm not trying to say that we're old clunkers, but like, hey, if you're 40, 50, 60 years old or older, I mean, you got a bit of wear and tear on the body. So you can't just be going pedal to the metal and expect, all the joints, tendons, and ligaments to hold up. It's like, something's going to give. And it very often does, especially the older you get. So when it comes to training to failure, I have a definition of failure that's different than a lot of people. And my definition of failure is, it's not the point at which you can't complete another repetition, or it's not the point where you can't move the weight at all. It's the point at which your exercise form starts to break down. So when you get to the point where your form is breaking down, that's failure, right? You've stimulated the muscle. Like, once that happens, stop the set. It doesn't mean you can't continue to move the weight. Like, I'll just give you an example. Like, maybe in a bicep curl, this is a very common one. Like, when you get to the point where you can't do another strict curl, but if you start swinging and heaving and cheating, you can, like, that's beyond failure. Like, stop the set when you can't do another strict curl. Or in the case of the bench press, like, okay, if you're doing strict control bench presses, but then, you get to the point where it's starting to get heavy, but if you arch your back and lift your ass off the bench and, use all kinds of leg drive and squirm and wiggle, you might be able to rep out another couple reps. Don't do it. Like, as soon as your form breaks down, the set is done, rack the weight. And even though it may feel initially like you're not pushing yourself hard enough and, I still got a rep or two left in the tank and all that kind of stuff, what you're doing is you're training enough to stimulate the muscle, but you don't need to annihilate the muscle. Like, you don't need to destroy it. You just need to stimulate it. And even though in the moment it feels like, hey, I'm not training as hard, in the long term, it's probably actually more productive. And I will say it is more productive, because if you keep pushing the limit where you train to failure and beyond, and you're using poor form, eventually something's going to give. And if you get injured, that's going to slow your progress more than anything. Like, if you stop a set short of failure, that's not hindering muscle growth. That's not hindering your progress. If you even skip a workout, like you're not feeling it today and you say, you know what, I'm going to take the day off and I'll resume again tomorrow. That's really, in the bigger scheme of things, as long as you're good enough consistently, like, that's not hindering your progress. But if you go in the gym and you do too much and train beyond your means and you get injured, meaning you, like, let's just say you tear a muscle, tear a tendon or tear a ligament, or you end up like, snapping your shit up, like if you tear something or hurt something, that's definitely going to hinder your progress, because that injury could take weeks, could take months, could take years. In some cases, it may never recover. And I'm speaking from experience. Like, I have injuries from back in 2008 that still hinder my workouts today. Right? Like, I suffered a bad muscle tendon tear out right in my right armpit area. Right? Like, it's the supporting muscles that connect the triceps and the lats. Right? I tore some tendons and ligaments there. And like, I haven't been able to train and do heavy exercise. Like, I can't do heavy deadlifts anymore, because when I pull heavy weight, it strains that whole area. And there's a lot of exercises that I can't do because of that injury. That was back in 2008. And that'll never recover. Right? I mean, like, that's just, I have to deal with it, and I have to work around it. So, I mean, if you can avoid injury, that's the one big thing that's going to help you. I mean, and I have this saying, I always like to visualize my workouts. Like, I'll go in there and I'll push myself, but I listen to my body. And if I'm in doubt, I leave it out. I always want to live to lift another day, right? Versus trying to be this no pain, no gain, macho, work your way through it type of BS. Like, pushing yourself beyond pain and through that. I mean, yeah, you may do it. You may do it several times in a row and get away with it. But if you get injured, right, you have a serious injury, that's going to set you back. And I mean, you look at a lot of top bodybuilders, like former Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates, who I absolutely love. I mean, when I was growing up, he was the current Mr. Olympia while I started my bodybuilding in the 90s. Started competing in that. And I mean, I looked up to him and I read everything that he published. I had his videos and everything else. I mean, I idolized the guy, and I tried to mimic my training off Dorian Yates as much as I could. This whole high intensity mantra. And yeah, it works. But look at the injuries that he suffered from that type of training, right? He's had multiple injuries, and it caused him to have an early retirement. Whereas other people who have been more cautious with their training, more focused on the volume and the quality, and not just pushing extremely heavy weights. Prime example, like Jay Cutler. I mean, he hasn't had any major injuries, right? Former Mr. Olympia. I mean, top of the, best in the world at one time. He hasn't had any major injuries. And that part of that is the way he trains, because he's not that balls to the wall, high intensity. Like, he's still training hard, but he's focusing more on quality versus just pushing the limits. And if you have that kind of mindset where you're focusing on the quality of your training and actually feeling the muscles work, time under tension, versus just pushing heavy weight and just trying to put as much strain and damage on the body as possible, I think it's actually better in the long run, right? Another example, like Ronnie Coleman, right? He's crazy intensity with his training. I mean, the man's walking with crutches now. Now, again, like, yeah, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Like, I mean, I know I've heard him say in interviews before that he doesn't regret it, and if he could do it all over again, he would, and all that kind of stuff. But like, do you want to go through the rest of your life? Like, because he's still a relatively young man in the greater scheme of things. Like, he got a lot of years ahead of him. Would you want to go through the rest of your life like riddled with injuries and walking with crutches because of the damage you did when you were in your 30s? Right? No, it's not worth it. And to me, it's not, right? But again, to each their own. So my advice when it comes to that, stimulate the muscle, not annihilate it. And I'm stealing that line from former Mr. Olympia Lee Haney. And focus on quality over quantity. And as soon as your form starts to break down, the set is over. And you could even say, as soon as your repetition tempo really slows down, like if you get to the point where you're struggling and grinding out that rep, like, the set is over. Like, don't try and push it beyond that. Like, when you get to the point where you're grinding, that's when the muscles and tendons and ligaments are at they're at the breaking point. And I mean, like, okay, you're either going to complete it or something's going to snap. Like, that's the level of tension. Like, think of power lifters in a meet who are pushing, 1 rep max temps. I mean, yeah, they may get it and everything else, but I tell you, virtually every power lifter that I know who's been at it for any length of time, like guys in their 40s and 50s who've been powerlifting since, for years, like, they've got the injuries to show for it, right? The blown out rotator cuffs, the pec tears, the blown out patella tendons, the bulging discs in the back, whatever, because again, they're pushing the body to the breaking zone. And I would recommend, for those of you who are focusing on health and fitness, you don't need to push it that hard, right? You really don't. I mean, if you're gunning for world records and stuff, well, that's a different animal and a different conversation. But for the average person who's watching these videos, who's looking to just build muscle, get in shape, and look and live a healthy lifestyle, you don't need to push the limits, right? Good enough and good enough consistently. All right, how are we doing? I know we got a lot of chat coming through there, and I'm going to address those after. All right, one more question I want to address, or one more topic before I get into answering your questions there that are coming through. Have a cup of tea first. And this is the topic of hormone replacement therapy, or TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, whatever you want to call it, because I've get a lot of people emailing me and asking questions about this, and I want to just kind of clarify this because there's a lot of misinformation and confusion about it. A lot of people think that TRT or HRT is like the holy grail. And so, oh man, if I was on that HRT stuff or whatever, man, I'd be lean and ripped and jacked and blah, blah, blah. And like they look at someone, they say the only reason that person is lean and ripped and jacked is because they're on HRT or TRT or blah, blah, blah. And no doubt it helps, right? I mean, if somebody has low testosterone or low growth hormone or low thyroid or whatever, and they start getting hormone replacement therapy to correct that, and now they go from low to optimal levels, yes, of course, it's going to help the process along, but it doesn't cancel out poor diet and lifestyle choices. And this is something that I've seen over and over again. Like, you would be amazed at the number of people who've reached out to me in private, guys who've reached out to me for help and saying like, okay, I've been taking TRT for the past year or 2 years or whatever. I'm still fat and out of shape. Like, what's wrong? What do I do? Like, just because you have optimal testosterone levels doesn't mean that your body's going to be lean and ripped. Like, again, it doesn't cancel out poor diet and lifestyle choices. I mean, yeah, it may help with some of the issues you're dealing with, like any erectile dysfunction, and might help to increase your energy levels and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that people sometimes suffer with if they have low testosterone, but it's not a magic fix. And to kind of prove my point here, think of the average teenager or the average man in his early 20s. Like, you think of a teenager in his late teens, early 20s. His hormone levels are at their natural all-time peak. Like, they're not going to get any higher than they are than your late teens, early 20s, right? Like, think of your average pimply-faced teenager who's jerking off to porn all day long, right? Like, his testosterone levels are on bust. Like, is that guy lean, ripped, and jacked and look like a competitive bodybuilder? Chances are no, right? Even though the hormone levels are up there, it doesn't cancel or doesn't make up for the physique. Like, a lot of teenagers are skinny fat, right? Like, or just out of shape, right? I mean, I see it all the time, right? Like, just because you have high hormone levels doesn't automatically mean you're lean, ripped, and jacked. And a lot of people think that that's the magic bullet. Like, it cannot replace the whole process. The diet, the exercise, the lifestyle, the training, all that stuff needs to come first. And this is just like, if you have all that stuff in place, then this will help to optimize that, right? So I'm not saying that it doesn't help, but it's not going to do the work for you. And to give you another analogy, like, just imagine, like, I'm a recreational cyclist, and I'm just going to use this analogy. So just imagine you look at a professional cyclist and you say, well, the only reason he's so fast is because he's got, a carbon fiber bike with, aerodynamic disc wheels, and it's just this, super lightweight aero bike. And that's the reason why he's so fast, is because he got that aerodynamic carbon fiber bike. If I had a bike like that, I'd be as fast as him. Well, if you're like 50 pounds overweight and your fitness level's like down the crapper, like, you could get on like a $10,000 carbon bike. And okay, you may be a little bit faster because the bike is more efficient and everything else, but it's not going to make up for, poor fitness, right? Like, you could take a professional cyclist and have him get on a freaking Walmart bike, and then you could have someone who's piss poor shape and get him on a, $10,000, $20,000 carbon fiber aero bike. And the professional cyclist is going to kick his ass on a, $100 Walmart bike, because it's the fitness. Like, the bike doesn't make up for the poor fitness. Just like TRT isn't going to make up for poor diet and lifestyle choices. Now, if you have everything in place, like you have optimal fitness, then obviously upgrading the bike will help you to maximize your fitness. If you have the diet and exercise and lifestyle choices in place, and you do have low testosterone or low growth hormone or thyroid or whatever hormone issues you have, and you get that corrected, now it's optimized through hormone replacement therapy, then yeah, it's going to help to take it to the next level, but it's not going to do the work for you, right? I just need to clarify that, because a lot of people have this misunderstanding of thinking that, oh, if I get on that HRT stuff, then I'm all done. And no, it's not the magic bullet, right? It's just going to help you do a little bit better of whatever it is that you're doing. So, I mean, if you're doing nothing, then it's really the hormone replacement therapy is going to do nothing. But if you're pushing it and you're optimizing all the other variables, then that's just going to help to like be the icing on the cake. So just wanted to clarify that, because I know a lot of people have questions about that. Now, all that stuff that I talked about, if you have any questions about it and you want to reach out to me personally, then, hey, send me an email. My personal email address is leeh@leehayward.com. Drop me a line and we can chat about it. All right, now I'm going to jump into the Q&A questions here, the people who are tuning in live. So how's the chat so far? Let me know in the comments there if you're enjoying it so far. All right, let's move on. What do we got there? We've got Dan joining. We've got AT joining. We've got Kevin joining. Kevin's got a question. He says, carbs, are they better pre or post workout? It depends on what you're doing. It really depends on the type of workout, the duration of the workout. I actually addressed this I believe in my last week's video chat, but I'll touch on it here again. I personally, like, if you're doing a long duration workout, 2 hours plus, and especially I'm thinking like long duration cardio. Like if you're going in the gym doing an hour of weight training, it really doesn't matter. Like you've got enough glycogen stored in your muscles and liver and everything else to easily get through an hour of weight training, right? But if you're doing long duration workouts, like you're going out for, you're going to ride a 100-mile bicycle ride, that's going to take several hours, you know, something like that, or you're going to do a marathon or an Ironman or a day-long hike or some long adventure, you want to fuel up beforehand. Carbs in you beforehand actually gives you some energy to run on. Now, if you're only doing short workouts, again, it really doesn't matter. And you need to look at like what's your goal? Is your goal fat loss? Is your goal athletic performance? Because both vary, right? Like training for optimal fat loss isn't the same as training for optimal athletic performance. So it's a loaded question, and you're going to get a ton of different answers because it depends on the situation of the person asking the question. So, I mean, if you want some help with this, right, feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss it in more detail. But generally speaking, like from an athletic performance point of view, I would rather have the carbohydrates before so that they're in your system and that they can actually be utilized for energy during the workout itself versus taking them after. Because all you're doing when you're taking carbs after the workout is you're replenishing what you depleted. Now, I mean, that's still good, but you don't have that energy in your system to be utilized during the workout itself. So a lot of people are actually kind of switching gears. Instead of thinking of this whole post-workout thing, they're thinking, well, why don't I start the nutrition before the workout, you know, get the adequate nourishment in the system beforehand, so then I can actually go through the workout and utilize that energy and burn it during the workout. And then it's still in you, you know, to be utilized in the recovery process afterwards. Because it's not like you eat food and it's digested instantly, unless it's like super fast absorbing like glucose or dextrose or amino acids or something that are rapidly absorbed. But if it's any type of solid food, that stuff takes hours to digest and absorb. So a good pre-workout meal will actually be better, more beneficial than having the big old post-workout meal. But again, it depends on the situation and what it is that you're training for. What else we got there? Horned Frog saying greetings from Arkansas. All right, Mr. Horned Frog. I'm glad to have you tuning in. We got Dario joining in. He says, if you couldn't train as hard anymore due to medical issues, would you still train to whatever degree you were able to? Yes, I would. I mean, even in my own case, like I can't train as hard as I used to due to injuries, but I still train, right? I mean, it good enough consistently. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, I mean, like if something happened, like I couldn't lift weights, well, I would still do cardio, or I would still do like yoga or mobility exercises or something. Like I'm going to do whatever I can for as long as I can, right? Like, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be good enough. And even like when I was going through like injury rehab, because like you know, I've torn both biceps. I've torn that muscle in my tricep lat tie-in area. I've numerous times like had shoulder strains. Luckily, it was never a full-on tendon detachment or nothing, but I've had like pec and shoulder strains where seriously limited my training. But I would go in the gym and I would still work out. I would work around those injuries, or I would use ridiculously light weights. Like I would do machine exercises with no weight. Like literally, I can remember when I had my bicep tear, I would be going in and I'd be doing the hammer strength. Like I'd be using the hammer strength bench press and row and shoulder press with no weight, just the empty handles, you know, the plate loaded hammer strength machines. Like I'd be in there, no weight, just going through the motions, doing high reps. And then, you know, next week I put a 2.5 pound plate on each side. So here I am, hammer strength bench press or hammer strength row with a 2.5 pound plate. And people looking at like, what the frig is this guy doing? But I was just going through the motions, because what I want to do is move the body parts, provide blood flow and circulation and stimulation. Because very often when you're trying to recover from an injury, like doing absolutely nothing is not the fastest way to recover. Light movement where the muscles are stretching and contracting and you're breaking up scar tissue and all that, like that's the fastest way to recover. So light active recovery exercise is actually faster to recover from an injury. And that's what I would always do. So I still, like, if I can't train hard and heavy, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I can do, right? I mean, if my wife was the same way. I remember several years back, she used to do martial arts. She used to compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and she broke her ribs and she broke her wrist, and she had a lot of injuries with that. But I remember one time she broke her wrist and her whole arm was in a cast because she broke her wrist. So obviously she wasn't doing any upper body work, but she'd go into the gym and she'd train legs, she'd train abs, and she'd do cardio. Right. So, I mean, she was still in the gym training with a cast on. Like, you can do something, right? Even if it's not perfect, it just, as long as it's good enough consistently. I got a question asking, how's the wife and kids? Well, I only have one kid, but they're doing great. And they're actually out there getting supper ready for us all. So I'm going to be joining them very shortly after I finish this up. Horned Frog says, I recently tore my bicep tendon after an MRI. Doctor did not recommend surgery. I'm 66. I recall from one of your old videos that you tore your bicep. Did you have surgery? How did you recover? It's ironic you mentioned this. I just talked about it. That's exactly how I recovered. Now, I didn't have surgery. Here in Canada, the good old Canadian healthcare system, I mean, okay, it's covered by MCP and all that stuff. So, I mean, like, we don't have to pay to go to the doctor or go to the hospital, which is great. But sometimes the service you get is what you pay for. Because I remember going to the doctor after I had torn my bicep, and he said, well, I can put you on a waiting list to see a specialist. And I said, okay, how long is that going to take? He said, at least 6 months, maybe a year. Like, what? Like 6 months to a year on a waiting list to see a specialist about a muscle tear? Like, if you have a tear, like, it needs to be dealt with like ASAP, right? It's not something, because it's going to start to heal over on its own, right? And even if it's not full, like, thankfully in my case, it wasn't a full-on tear. It was only a partial tear. But, you know, I still got to deal with that. So my left bicep is shorter than my right, and it'll always be that way. But I never did have surgery, right? I had recovered myself, you know, while I was on the 6 to 12 month waiting list, and I never did see a specialist about it because, you know, but I did go, did some physiotherapy, and I recovered myself, and that's exactly how I did it, was just by going through the motions with very light exercises. In fact, one of the exercises that I was doing to help heal my bicep, I started off curling a water bottle, like literally just like one of these, right? Just obviously there was water in it. This one's empty, but I would just do water bottle bicep curls. Like, that was my first bicep exercise, and I would do that. And then I would go to the gym and, like I say, go through the motions with the machines with no weights, and then gradually, you know, up by 2 pounds a week. And week by week by week, I started gradually working up to the point where I was actually lifting some respectable weights. But it took me a full year before I was back to normal training again. So it's not something that, like, oh, like, you know, give it a week or two and you'll be back at it again. No, it took me a year before I was back to normal training. Now, it wasn't that long before I was back to, like, getting some decent workouts, but before I was back to, like, lifting what I considered heavy weight, it was a full 12 months. We've got Azim joining in. He's a regular to the chats. Nice to see you. We got AJ joining in. What age would you say you were at your strongest physical prime? I'm 28 and I've been lifting on and off from 22, been extremely consistent this year. Ironically, you mentioned that my strongest best was in my mid 20s, around 28. That was the year I had my first major injury that really kind of set things back. But up until then, like when I was 28, I won my first and only bodybuilding competition. I won the overall title at our provincial championships. Before that, I was training in powerlifting, and I set my all-time personal best lifts in powerlifting. My squat was 520, my bench was 445, and my deadlift was 530. So those were my personal best lifts in powerlifting. And I did those all around. Just trying to think. I'm not sure if the lifts might have been done when I was 27, and then I won the bodybuilding championships when I was 28. But it was around that time frame. So it was my late 20s is when I hit my peak, and then I had an injury which really set me back. Now, generally speaking, assuming you don't have any injuries and stuff like that, like if you just go through your natural strength curve and everything works out, most people tend to peak out in their early to mid 30s. That's when most guys will be in their quote unquote prime in terms of their strength and power and muscle maturity is in that age. And once you start getting into your late 30s and then your 40s and beyond, that's when you tend to start to decline a bit. Now, again, it's going to vary from person to person. Like, I mean, if you didn't exercise at all and then you started training in your 40s, well, you could get in your best shape ever in your 40s or 50s or 60s or whatever. Like some of my coaching students, right, are in their 50s and 60s, and they're in the best shape of their life in their 50s and 60s because they started training later in life. You know, early on, they weren't doing any sports or athletics, and now, you know, having some health issues and doctors telling them, hey, you got to get your shit together. You know, you got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you know, blah, 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 your heart attack waiting to happen, pre-diabetic, this and that. And they finally decide, you know, hey, I got to start taking care of myself. And now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they're in their best shape ever because they're taking action. But assuming someone is active their whole life and again, no injuries that are going to derail the progress, most guys hit their peak in their early to mid 30s. What age can someone start bodybuilding? This one's from Jerry. It depends. It depends. Like, I mean, your level of fitness. I mean, in bodybuilding competitions, there's teenage divisions. So, I mean, you see guys in their teens. I personally did my first bodybuilding show at 17. Would I recommend it? It's hard to say, because the thing I don't like about bodybuilding is, in order to get, again, let me clarify this. Let me even back up a bit. I'm talking competitive bodybuilding. If you're talking about bodybuilding in terms of building your body, lifting weights, going to the gym and exercising, that can be done from a very early age. Like very early, you can start doing some exercises. In fact, weight training and just resistance training in general is actually very safe when it's done properly and done in a supervised fashion, and you actually teach them how to do it properly. Like, you look at gymnasts. I mean, like a lot of gymnasts, I mean, they're doing body weight and resistance exercises with their own body. Like, they're starting at 2 years old. Now, granted, it's not at that age, they're just kind of tumbling around on the mats and everything else, but they start super young, right? They start super young and they just gradually progress from there. You know, you look at a lot of sports, and kids are 5 years old starting a lot of sports, right? So, I mean, like, you can start exercise in terms of resistance training and stuff like that at a very young age. You know, I mean, like my son, I had him doing push-ups and squats and stuff like that, you know, ever since he was like 3 years old. I mean, he's not following any workout program, but like if I'm doing a workout at home and he sees me doing it, I say, hey, you know, Harvey, come on, jump in, do a set of push-ups with me, do a set of squats, right? You know, hang from the pull-up bar or something like that. And I might even like give him like a dumbbell handle or something like that. And then he'll start doing some curls. So, I mean, like, you could start very young, but again, it has to be adjusted for the child. I mean, obviously someone who's, you know, 3, 4, 5 years old, their attention span is like, you know, after they do something for 5 minutes, they're bored and they want to do something else, right? So it's not like they're going to be in the gym for 2 hours, but you can start very young. Now, as far as bodybuilding, like going to the gym and everything else, most gyms have a limit on age. I think it's somewhere around 15. Again, it depends on the area and everywhere else, but I think most gyms in my local area, the age is 15. Younger than that, they're not allowed to join. And as far as actual competing, I would wait till the late teens before someone competes in bodybuilding in terms of diet down for a bodybuilding competition. Because the process of dieting down for a bodybuilding competition, you have to put yourself in a pretty severe calorie deficit in order to get the body fat low enough to compete. And I don't think that's healthy or recommended for a teenager who's in their growth spurt, right? Like going through, several months of very low calorie dieting while you're in your body's natural prime for growth. So I think it's better to wait until your late teens before you start dieting for fat loss to get contest shredded. So that's the way I would look at it. But again, if you have any questions about it, you want to chat about it, like maybe you got a child and you're like, how do I get them started or whatever, feel free to email me. Again, leeh@leehayward.com, and we can chat about it through there. Or if we're friends on Facebook, you can message me on Facebook as well, right? I'm very active on Facebook. So if you haven't followed me on Facebook or friended me up, just do a search for Lee Hayward on Facebook. You should find my profile. It's me wearing a dad bod t-shirt and doing a front double bicep, right? So because I know there's a lot of Lee Haywards. Like you search on Facebook for Lee Haywards because Hayward's a common name, especially over in Europe, throughout the UK. But I'm probably the only Lee Hayward doing a front double bicep in this profile picture. So you should be able to find me. It's the same one that I have for my YouTube profile. All right. Mohammed's saying, yeah, it becomes more simple. You can do it consistently. I think he was referring to my original rants and topics that I was talking about earlier. But thanks for tuning in, Mohammed, and thanks for sharing your feedback. When Thor saying thanks. You're welcome, my friend. We've got Emma joining in. Are you doing another bodybuilding show anytime soon? Nope. The next local competition won't be till next year, as far as I know. Will I do it next year? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'll decide as the show gets closer. The way it is now with my whole approach to fitness and nutrition, like I'm not far from striking distance to get in contest shape because I stay relatively lean year round. Right? Like I don't get fat in the off season anymore because I don't try and bulk up. I try and stay relatively lean year round. So if I feel like doing it, I might, but I don't really have anything to prove in bodybuilding or nothing like that. Like I wanted to make a comeback in the over 40 division and I did that. Will I do it again? I may. It's too soon to say, but I'm not losing any sleep over it now. Put it that way. We got Billy joining in saying, glad to see you're doing good. I've been subscribed to you since 2008. Your vids helped me to lose 150 pounds. Keep up the great work. Whoa, congratulations. And thank you for sharing that, Billy. That is an amazing accomplishment, man. Reach out to me, Billy. I would love to chat with you about that. And man, that's quite an accomplishment, man. So again, if you're still watching this, Billy, send me an email. Reach out to me. Just say, hey, I'm Billy from YouTube, and I lost 150 pounds, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to chat to you about it. That's awesome. We got Demi joining in. We have Ruel joining in. We've got AT saying weight loss plateau, ? Send me an email. That's a loaded question. Is it a weight loss plateau because you're not doing anything? Is it a weight loss plateau because you're doing too much, right? Like when it comes to plateaus, you really need to look at like what's causing the plateau. Like a lot of times, more often than not, it's because you're eating too much and you're not exercising enough. But in some cases, I've seen it actually be the reverse, where people are like burning the candle at both ends, following a super low calorie diet, doing hours of cardio, and they just got their whole body like stressed to the limit. And sometimes that can actually ironically cause a weight loss plateau. And sometimes you actually kind of just need to like back off, do a deload phase, if you will, and just kind of like reset the metabolism sometimes. Like give yourself a metabolic break from dieting, and that can actually help the process along. So if you are stuck at a weight loss plateau, the best thing to do is to email me or message me through Facebook and we can chat about it, because like How I answer this really depends on you, your situation, what's causing that plateau to begin with, right? RB joining in. No question, but a whole lot of the beginning years of my training in my garage were largely motivated by your videos. Thanks for all the knowledge. Well, thanks, RB. Appreciate that. And nothing wrong with starting off in a garage gym. I mean, I did my first 8 years of training, did my first 3 bodybuilding competitions, working out at home in my basement with homemade equipment. Right? Like living at my parents' house, training in my basement with homemade equipment. Now, the later years, the homemade equipment was actual proper welded together steel equipment that my father and I made together. But my early years, some of that homemade equipment was made of wood. Like my very first squat rack was made of 2x4s. And I had a bench press and stuff that was made of 2x4s and plank boards. And then for padding, we had some old carpet that I rolled up and put on top of it for a bench. And that was how I started. Pretty raw, right? But I mean, hey, you can make it work. What else we got there? We have Fifth Possum. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He joined in last week. Nice to see you back. Let's see what we got. Sorry I lost connection, but hello again from Ontario, Canada. Awesome. Well, I'm Newfoundland, Canada. Fellow Canadian joining in. Thanks. Ruel saying, what would you consider the appropriate benchmarks leading up to a physique competition if you're starting from a place of being slightly overweight? Well, okay, what are the steps to getting there? Good question. Because a lot of people have this like in the back of their mind, like, you know what? Someday I'd like to give it a go. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a sip of tea. So there we go. A lot of people, like a lot of my coaching students, and then Ruel is actually part of the Muscle After 40 blueprint. And it was like, one of these days I might like to give it a go, right? Try my hand at a novice bodybuilding physique competition. And first off, like if you want to do it, then have that as your goal, right? Like that's fine. But give yourself lots of time. And you got to look at yourself from a good overall perspective. Like, what is it you really need to focus on? Like if you say you're slightly overweight, okay, are you slightly overweight with a good muscular build underneath? Or are you slightly overweight and, if you lose that fat, then you're just going to be skinny and scrawny underneath? Because bodybuilding is about muscle, right? Like when it's all said and done, like the guy with the most muscle and definition is going to win, like more often than not, right? Unless he comes in way too soft and he didn't diet down enough, then okay, you might have a smaller, more ripped guy compete. But if you got 2 guys on stage who are dieted down, ripped and shredded, the guy with the most muscle on his frame is going to win, right? That's the way it is. It's bodybuilding, right? It's about muscle, but it's also about the definition. So you need to have a good muscular base. If you have that and it's just a matter of losing the body fat that's covering it, then yeah, I mean, you could literally do a bodybuilding show like within a year. I mean, you have to look at your local area, the local contests and everything else and kind of plan it out. I actually have a book called Your First Bodybuilding Competition. And I'm actually going to send you a copy of that, Ruel, because obviously you're a coaching student of mine. I'm going to send it over to you so you can read it, and it actually talks about the whole process. But the very first competition you go to in person, like I'm not talking about like watching it online. I mean, you can learn a lot online, but there's something about being at a live event, right? And taking it all in and seeing the behind the scenes and all this kind of stuff and the chit chat in the hallways and all that. I mean, that stuff is invaluable, and you don't get that from watching an online video, right? The first competition you go to, you want to go as a spectator, right? Go to the pre-judging, go to the final competition in the evening and take it all in and just kind of learn. And you will see the whole spectrum, especially if you go to a novice level competition, because you're going to see guys up there who, like, you say, man, like, I respect you for having the balls to get up there and do it, but you shouldn't be on stage because like you're way too overweight or you're way too skinny or whatever. Like you really don't fit in. And, to each their own. There's nothing wrong with showing up and placing dead last. I mean, I respect people who compete at all levels regardless. But then you're going to see a lot of people who are in the middle, and then you're going to see a few exceptional guys, and of course, they're the ones who are going to win. But take it all in and learn. You'll be amazed at how much you learn by just showing up and watching, right? You'll see what's expected, the caliber of the physiques that are there and everything else, and you will learn so much. And that's where that's your first competition. From there, you really need to kind of like evaluate, like, where are you at in terms of your level of muscularity, your level of body fat and everything else. And I'm going to tell you up front, in order to get contest lean, contest ripped, you're going to have to lose a lot more weight than you think. Like, a lot of people think, well, oh, if I get down to 10% body fat, I'll be ripped. No. Like, your goal, like, this is, I actually recommend this in the book. Like, I want you to, this is how I recommend guys to calculate your goal contest weight. Figure out, what is your body fat percentage? How many pounds of body fat do you have on your body? And strive to lose all of it. Like, that's the goal. Like, the goal is like zero body fat. Now, of course, it's impossible to get to zero body fat, but you strive to get to 0% body fat. Like, that's the mindset and the mentality that you have to approach this with. Because if you go in, there's this thing, oh, I just want to be lean enough so I can see my abs. You're going to be the softest guy on stage, and you're going to look like the Pillsbury Doughboy, even though, you know, you can see your abs. Like, you have to be like ripped. Like, abs is like the least. Like, you want not just abs, but you want definition, cuts, and separation everywhere. So I mean, like, you need to lose more than you think you do. I'm telling you up front. Like, I've had it before where I started from, like, seeing guys start their diet with visible abdominal definition and still lose 40 or 50 pounds from there, especially like the super heavyweight guys, right? I've seen guys before, might be like 240, 250 off season with visible abs, and then diet down to 198 and compete in the light heavyweight class. Like, that's the level of how much weight you have to lose to really be competitive in bodybuilding. Now, again, for a novice level show, I mean, things are kind of scaled back because you're not pushing the limits like that. But still, even at the novice level, it's going to be more work than you think. But it's a good experience to go through. It's actually a rewarding one because, one, it's going to push yourself. You're going to build some grit and mental toughness and determination and discipline, and you will surprise yourself by what you can physically do when you go through the whole process of a bodybuilding show. Because you will be stricter with your eating, you'll be stricter with your training, you'll be more disciplined, more consistent, more dedicated, and like, it's actually quite shocking what people go through. And I think it's actually good to go through that. Like, it builds some grit and mental toughness. And like that type of, those characteristics, I mean, you can carry that over into other areas. Like, I've seen guys who are like successful bodybuilders, if they can apply that same type of determination towards like building a business or something like that, I mean, they can actually achieve a lot of success because that singularity of focus, you know, that dedication and the commitment and just the, I'm not going to quit, right? Having that, no matter what, this is getting done, right? Burn the bridges behind you. I am going to do this no matter what type of attitude. Once you develop that, I mean, it's a powerful trait to have. Now, a lot of people don't have it. Like, more often than not, I see a lot of guys say, oh yeah, I'm going to compete in the next show. And then they'll start their diet in a month in. They're like, oh, it was too hard. Oh, I got busy at work, right? You know, this happened, that happened, or whatever. And they, you know, they're not competing anymore, right? Because they just don't have it, right? They're mentally not tough enough, right? It's not that they physically couldn't do it. It's just like that they quit up there. And that's where most people quit. They quit mentally before they physically quit. But again, man, if you want help with it, like, we'll chat about it, you know, we'll chat about it in our next coaching call. There you go. Who else we got there? Torpedoes joining in. He says, Lee, is a little bit of junk food such as pizza okay while trying to lose weight? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And I'm going to share a strategy right now. And this will probably be how I'll clue up the video chat because I'm getting a bit low on time here. This is my strategy for enjoying pizza without blowing your diet and without getting fat. First off, every single meal, I want you to start off with protein and vegetables. This is your like, if you're looking at non-negotiable habits, like I have 3 non-negotiable habits. There are 3. I got to exercise every day. some way, some shape, some form, exercise every day, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's going for a bicycle ride, whether that's taking my dog for a walk, whether that's doing a follow along yoga workout, whether that's hitting the floor and doing push-ups and ab work and squats at home. Like, I'm going to exercise some way, some shape, some form for at least 15 minutes a day, right? Like that's like an off day for me is to take my dog for a walk. Like, you know, maybe for like a walk around the block, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or something. That's considered a day off, taking my dog for a walk. But I still physically did some exercise. Like every single day, I want to get off my ass and move, and ideally work up a sweat. Like as long as I can do enough exercise that I break a sweat, I can kind of check off and say, okay, I exercised today. That's my non-negotiable habit. So you want to have that. That's one habit. Another habit that I have, every single meal, I have to have some protein and I have to have some vegetables. So those are my three non-negotiables: daily exercise, protein, and veggies with each meal. So assuming you're following those habits, I'm going to have my, like, let's just say it's Friday night, it's pizza night. I'm going to start off with protein and veggies first. So I might have like a large garden salad, and I'll probably get a chicken breast, chop that up, throw it into the salad, mix it up, and I'm going to fill my belly up with chicken and salad first. Once I pre-fill my belly with chicken and salad, then I'm going to have a slice of pizza afterwards. And I might eat 1 or 2 slices of pizza, maybe even 3 if I'm really hungry. And then I'm going to be stuffed because I have a big bowl of chicken salad first. And then I had 2 or 3 slices of pizza, and I'm like, man, I'm stuffed. I can't eat another bite. Whereas if I just started eating pizza from the start, I could easily slam back 6 or 7 slices or more and do a lot of damage, right? So my strategy for enjoying junk food without going overboard is pre-fill your belly first with the good stuff and then have a little bit of the junk food afterwards. And that's naturally going to limit the amount of junk food you eat because you're physically going to fill your belly up. And the thing this is a cool thing about junk food, that once you understand it, it's going to be a game changer. It doesn't get better the more you eat. It doesn't get better the more you eat. So, I mean, if you eat 2 slices of pizza, the third one's not going to taste any better. The third one's not going to be any better than the second, right? If you go, you eat 1 bag of potato chips, the second bag's not going to taste any better than the first. Like if you eat a jumbo ice cream or a little kid size ice cream, like the more ice cream you eat, it doesn't get better the more you eat. So you can very often satisfy your junk food craving with a smaller portion of junk food. And I recommend satisfying your cravings more often with smaller portions versus saving it all up for a big old cheat day where Saturday is cheat day and I'm going to eat everything I can on cheat day. No, I don't have cheat days anymore. I don't even pre-plan cheats anymore. It's just like if I'm craving something and I'm going to just get that craving taken care of, nip it in the bud, and then forget about it and move on. So like if I'm craving pizza, then I'm going to order a small pizza and I'm going to have my chicken and my salad first. And then my wife and I and my son, we're going to share a small pizza or whatever it is. It's only going to be like, I'm going to have a couple slices. She's probably going to have a couple slices and my little fella's probably have a slice, right? Like there. And that's it. The pizza's gone. I got the craving satisfied, and then I forget about it and move on and get back on track for my very next meal. If I'm craving ice cream, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to buy a small kid-size ice cream, right? I'll go to the ice cream shop, and instead of getting the big old jumbo, double-decker, triple scoops or whatever, like these big, ginormous, jumbo, super-sized ice creams, I'm going to get the smallest little kiddie-size ice cream. And that's going to be enough to satisfy my ice cream flavor. I mean, I'll just eat that and enjoy it and say, okay, I got the ice cream satisfied, done, check, forget it, move on. And this is how I deal with it, because if you eat a small serving of it, like, okay, I mean, it's still empty calories and it's junk and everything else, but it's a small bit of empty calories. It's a small bit of junk. And in the greater scheme of the things of your total daily calorie intake, it's not going to throw things off. But if you ignore those cravings, like you say, I'm not allowed to have pizza, not allowed to have ice cream, not allowed to have potato chips, or not allowed to have whatever it is that you're craving, and you keep ignoring it and putting it off, what happens is those cravings build and the tension starts to build. And then every time you walk by a pizza place, you're like, oh man, it's just, I want pizza. Or you walk by the ice cream shop, I want ice cream. Like, because the craving starts to build and build and build. And you know, I'm not allowed to have it, And then knowing that you're not allowed to have it because you're on a diet, that actually makes you want it more. Right? It's just like you're talking to kids. Like if you tell a kid not to do something, like, you're not allowed to do that. Don't do that. what do they want to do? They want to do exactly what you tell them not to do, right? Like if you say, hey, don't go touch those ornaments over on the shelf, they want to go over and touch the ornaments on the shelf, right? You tell them, don't go trampling through your nanny's flower garden. What do they want to do? They want to go outside and trample through nanny's flower garden. Like they want to do what they're not allowed to do. So if you put these rules and you say, I'm not allowed to have pizza, I'm not allowed to have ice cream, I'm not allowed to have cookies, then all of a sudden you want pizza, you want ice cream, you want cookies, right? Because you're not allowed to have it and you want it even more. But if you have it set up like, I can eat whatever the hell I want. Like I'm not on a diet. I can eat whatever I want. Like I can call up the pizza place and have them deliver a jumbo pizza. Or I can go to the convenience store and I can stock up on cakes and cookies and chips and ice cream. I mean, like there's no food police guarding me. Like I have the right to do whatever the heck I want, but I just choose not to. And the fact that I know I can do it actually makes me want to do it less. As stupid as it is. But every now and then when those cravings do hit, then I want to satisfy it as soon as possible so that I can get that craving out of the way and forget about it and move on, versus ignoring it and saying I'm not allowed to have it and then let that craving build and build and build to the point where I can't take it anymore. And then I go and have this big old binge. So instead of having like 1 or 2 slices of pizza and getting that pizza satisfied, I let that craving build and build and build. Next thing I know, I'm going to order a jumbo pizza and then like stuff myself. And then because I stuff myself with pizza, I'm going to say, oh, I feel like shit. Well, I blew the diet. Oh, well, frig it. Just as well to get some ice cream now to wash down that pizza with. And oh, get a bag of Doritos to go along with that ice cream. And like, oh, I screwed up Friday night. Well, I'm frig it. I'm going to eat like crap on Saturday and I'm going to eat like crap on Sunday. And then I'll start my diet again on Monday. And this is what happens. Like people start Monday with the best of intentions, right? Monday, eating clean. Tuesday, eating clean. Thursday or Wednesday, Thursday, eating clean. Friday rolls around. Oh, I got to have a cheat, right? Because I'm cravings starting to kick in. And then they cheat a little bit on Friday. And then they're like, oh, screw it. Well, diet's blown. I'll start again on Monday. So they're going to eat like crap all Friday evening, eat like crap all day Saturday, eat like crap all day Sunday, and then start again on Monday. And those eat like crap days just cancel out whatever calorie deficit you created from Monday to Thursday. And that's why people who are always on and off again, starting their diet on Monday, and they're always like, I eat clean, I eat healthy, I don't know why I'm not losing weight. It's because you're eating too damn much on the weekend, and you're canceling out calorie deficit, and that's why you're actually getting fatter instead of leaner, right? The more you diet, the fatter you get. And that's the truth. That's how it happens for most people, right? So you need to have strategies where you can satisfy those cravings before they get out of control. And this is how I do it. So like if I'm craving a cookie, I'll go eat the freaking cookie, get the craving out of my system, and then forget about it and move on, right? I'll have small frequent cheats, and I don't pre-plan them or anything like that. Is when the craving hits. Satisfy it when it's small, get it taken care of so that I can forget about it, move on, get back on track for my very next meal. And that's how you go about eating junk food without blowing your diet. And you'll find that the more you do this, the easier it's going to get. Like initially, it's going to be a bit hard because if you're used to eating junk for every day, every meal, I mean, you kind of have to go through a bit of withdrawal almost, right? And it's going to be a bit harder. But start with the protein and veggies first. It makes the process easier. So even if you're still eating junk food with every single meal, as long as you're filling up with the protein and veggies first, then you're naturally just going to eat less junk food. And then gradually you'll get to the point where, okay, you can have some meals with just the protein and veggies and not even have the junk food. And it's just going to gradually be less and less and less. But it's going to take some time to work into that. But don't be in a rush. Focus on improving those underlying habits first, and then just trust the process and let it work slowly but surely over time. And that's how I do it. And that's how I preach to the guys in their coaching program. And like say, as simple as it is, it works. It really does. It works. And this can apply to other areas. Like maybe you have trouble with drinking. Like maybe, like I've had some guys in our coaching program who are heavy drinkers, like every single day having several drinks. Well, like I say, okay, like instead of having several drinks, how about you just, and trying to go cold turkey and cut it out, how about you just have one or just have two? Or heck, if you normally have like 4 drinks every evening after work, how about you have 3 drinks and a sparkling water? Like just start small, still have your 3 drinks and a sparkling water. And then the next day or next week, maybe have 2 drinks and 2 sparkling water. So you're still having 4 drinks, but 2 of them are non-alcoholic. Like you can gradually wean yourself off it without feeling like you're depriving or neglecting it. And this is the process that you would go through for junk food or any other cravings, right? Just gradually wean yourself off it and don't make it off limits, because the minute you say I'm not allowed to have it, that actually makes you want it more. And it's ironic how it works. But when you're allowed to have whatever you want it less. right? That's the way it works. So, I mean, that's my strategy and it works. Anyway, gentlemen and ladies and boys and girls and whoever else is tuning in, I'm going to get ready and clue this up because I've been rambling on for over an hour and my wife has dinner ready for us. So I'm going to go enjoy dinner with the family and I will be back again next week. Same time, same place, Friday afternoon, right, for a live video chat. Hopefully you tune in. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions or you want to reach out to me, if you want, need some help or you want to elaborate on anything that I discussed here, send me an email, leeh@leehayward.com. I have my email down in the description of the video below if you want to open it up and check that out down there. Or you can message me through Facebook and we can chat through there. So that's it. I'm done. Over and out. Take care. Have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. Done.